Hi everybody, it's Alisa Murray here with another Martini Talks, hanging out with my dear friend Babs. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, it's always my pleasure.
We have so much fun, guys. Y'all are in for a treat every time we sit down on this couch. I just have to tell you guys that. We are talking about mental health. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We've been talking about all kinds of stuff associated with that, and I just find it so refreshing that it's now in the forefront of what we're talking about. I think it has a lot to do with people being stuck in their homes, stuck with their spouses, not happy about that. Some are not. I am actually. I've always been with my spouse and not feeling stuck about that at all. But you know, it's interesting because there's so many people who have depression, so many people who have depression that feel like there's something wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just a chemical thing that needs to be tweaked, you know, and once it's tweaked, everything's good. So, talk to me about that.
So, there's nothing wrong with being depressed. Please, there's nothing wrong with being depressed. You know, it can be defined as a mood disorder, and so my disorder just happens to be bigger than a lot of people I know.
Right.
So, I think other people handle it differently, but I do think it's been exacerbated by the pandemic. People being alone, people being isolated, loss of employment, sometimes loss of a relationship, and again, feeling isolated, not seeing loved ones, not being able, I think that can all...
That's really tough.
It is.
It's been tough for mom, not seeing grandkids, not making the normal trips for normal holidays. It's been a lot of long-lasting, I'm sure for a long time, even for our youth. I mean, graduation looked different last year. Graduation looked different this year. People aren't going off to college because they're not going to have the type of experiences that they normally would have. And if you're going to spend the money for that, they're taking a year off to wait another year out and setting them back just another little bit further in terms of their career choices and journey. You know, so I mean, it's one of those things where it affects everybody in a different way, but I think the time that we're living in right now, it's done two things. It's become more exasperated, can't say it. It's gotten bigger, can't use that word right now, can't make that happen, little. It's gotten bigger, but it's also become more of a talked about, which is wonderful. Because, you know, when I was in school, my degree's in psychology, and you know that, and y'all know that, it was like diagnosis, and you were labeled, and it was a different thing. And now it's like refreshing to actually say, okay, what happened to you? Is there a reason behind this? Let's talk about this. Let's try to fix this. Is there some way to tweak one little thing here? And then that will make all the difference in the world. And both of us have had, both of our nephews committed suicide. And that's a wake-up call. And for me, I know that in the family, there's a genetic component, right? And a lot of times people who get diagnosed with depression are feeling like they are alone. But if you go back in the familial history, you'll find that oftentimes there's some of that here and there all along the way.
Right. I think that I would definitely agree with genetics because I've seen it, you know, come and go in my family. But we were speaking about how it is aware, and I am so happy that there's an awareness raised, and I would like to see that taken to the next level where it's an actual conversation, not just, oh, we're aware of it. You know, it's like, well, let's actually, you know, as you said, not label it.
Right.
Let's, you know, make it to the forefront because, you know, in my case, I'll be on medication for the rest of my life. So, you know, it's like being a diabetic, you have to take insulin, right, for the rest of your life, and I'm going to take these medications for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that, you know, and some people may not be, some people may not understand, you know, my goal, especially with my friends, is like, hey, you know, I might be, but I want you to love me and work with me, you know, if I'm not behaving in a way that you think is healthy, or I'm not behaving in a way that you understand, let's have a conversation, you know, not just like, oh, you know, what do I do? What do I say?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be treated differently.
No.
You know.
And you shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
And I think, you know, sometimes people are like, why are you on medication? You know, or what's wrong? You know, what's bothering you? And you're like, well, if I knew it was bothering me, I would let you know. Exactly. But I don't know.
See, that's the thing, and that's the thing that's so different from, it's like we were talking about earlier. When you get sick, if you think about mental illness as being sick, which is not, I don't see it as being sick, right? And that's where my continuum changes. My whole way of thinking changes. I don't label it as a sickness. I label it as there's something genetically or chemically that's just not quite right, and we have a way to fix that. So we need to fix that. No different than if Victoria Ann were to go out and eat a whole bunch of peanut butter and then go eat some shrimp, and she would have to have an EpiPen because she's got a food allergy, autoimmune. It's just there. It's in our family. It's there. And since she was 7 months old, we've carried an EpiPen. And now we're 22, and she's carrying an EpiPen. But it's part of life, right?
Right.
It's a continuous thing. It's not something she's going to outgrow. It's not something that you're going to not be taking meds for. It's not something that I'm not going to be taking meds for cholesterol or Brian diabetes with insulin. It's not like we went to the doctor and somebody said, "Oh, Patsy, you have an ear infection. So here's 10 days Z-Pack of antibiotic, and after you're done with it, you're well. That's it. You're done." We got to take the sick well out of the whole mental health conversation.
Right.
Because you're not sick. You just have a chemical that needs to be tweaked.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
It's no different than me. I'm not sick. Now you could ask the cardiologist, "Is Alisa sick?" And the cardiologist might look at you and say, "Yeah, she's had multiple heart attacks. We've got 2 stents. We're on blood thinners. We're on heart medicine. We're on cholesterol medicine for the rest of her life. She's sick." You ask the patient if I'm sick. I'm going to smile at you and say, "I'm not sick. I do not have heart disease. I'm not in denial. I'm just not sick. I feel like it's been fixed."
Right.
So that's how I want people to think about mental awareness, mental health, is you're not sick, and that you're not going to get drugs and then go take the drugs away. You're on drugs for a reason, and you're on them. It's not like, "Oh, I feel better." It's not like a strep throat. It's you're on that, just like I can't take away the cholesterol medicine.
Right.
I would be dumb to do that, because that's what's keeping the arteries cleaned, and I don't want to have a heart attack, so that's the medicine I have to take.
I like it that you talked about it like that, because again, I'm going to be on these meds, and it probably wouldn't be pretty if I was off. It would be awful, I don't think, but it would be way
different, yeah.
But I think the idea is like that there's sort of like shame or guilt that you feel like, because you're like, "Oh, I have to be on this medication," where a medical, because you can't really see it, right?
Yeah.
I can't define it as, "Oh, I do have strep throat," or something. It's just this like undefinable thing that lingers or pops its ugly head out, or can mess with your head anytime it wants.
Right.
And so but again, I'm old enough that I'm like, it's okay. And I'm frank about it because of, I think it's super important, with what happened with our nephews. And, people need to be able to talk and, listening, checking in with people, as we said, I think the worst thing would be like you felt like you could have done something.
Yeah.
And I think in my head too, and it's probably way random, like, if it was my birthday, if I just said, "Hey, let me talk to him, let me just say, hey, how are you?" Which, you can't do that, and it probably would have never worked anyway, but...
No, you have no way of knowing, and that's the thing about people that commit suicide. And it's been a hard thing for me to get my head wrapped around, because I told you before, but it's helped me today with you talking, and we actually taped a little bit before, and talked a lot before we taped today. We've had some audio issues, and you'll notice that when you're watching this episode. For me, it's like I don't have enough time, right? I want 400 lifetimes. I want 100 lifetimes to complete everything that I want to do. Like, I've always been a list maker. I want to do this. I want to be an artist. I want to be a photographer. I want to be a travel agent. I want to be a real estate agent. I want to make $1 million. I want to write a book. I want to travel the world. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to, it's almost whatever that problem is that they diagnose with the person that runs around all the time with maybe I could be diagnosed with that, leaky face. Maybe ask somebody that's prescribing drugs. They probably would think I should be medicated too. But the thing is that I want to have all this stuff I need to accomplish all these things. And for me, it's hard to wrap my head around how would you not want to live? And you shared with me something that was just so important. It's like you're not thinking about the time going by so fast.
No, it's very slow.
It's slow.
And things become painful.
Yeah.
Like, as you're saying, showering, brushing your teeth, simple things, you know? And then you just get to a place of numbness. I know in my case, it was like I'm able to be taken care of, you know? And, after the fact, especially with my daughter, I mean, not huge backlash, you're selfish, I can't believe you, and not really understanding like the other backside of it. And so, her now understanding how I felt, I understand how she felt, and being able to move forward, because it becomes so much time. It just drags on and drags, and you don't want to do anything. You want to go home, sit in your bed for the whole weekend and not talk to anybody, and then try to drag yourself out of bed and get back to work, and it's just like this weight on your shoulders. And sometimes for me, in my case, it was just enough. It was just enough. So and I'm sure in the case of our nephews, maybe like a similar feeling as well, that there's nothing that's going to take this away, and I think that's where it gets super important to check in on people.
Absolutely.
To, understand.
Absolutely. I mean, I have beat myself up. I've not been, I went through stages of grief as everyone does, but my first initial response was so much anger at him, because he had done this to my brother, to his mother, to his sister, to his family, and it was a non-retractable action. Non-retractable. And I want control, and people who know me know I want control. Like that comes from mother getting killed when I was little, that comes from me being the oldest child, that comes from me being damaged, and I'm traumatized. I'm aware that I'm traumatized. I'm medicated with my vodka because I'm traumatized. We talked about that earlier too. We all need our medication, and we're all on a continuum of some sort of medication. It might not be diagnosed by a doctor, but we're all medicating ourselves a little bit, some kind of way. But I was so angry, and then I went from anger to more like sympathy and understanding. And during this transformation for me, it's like, okay, something was wrong that we didn't see, and he didn't share, and we can't go back. When I get to heaven, he's going to get the biggest tongue lashing he's ever seen in his life, because every day he's following me around in the ding dang garden, the little yellow butterfly. For those of y'all that have been watching me for a long time, and those that are close to me know the whole thing. And I'm like, Jennings, man, damn, you're missing out on all this shit, right? You're missing it. You're missing babies. You're missing marriage. You're missing all the shit, the good stuff.
He was older, and as your nephews get older, they're just like, and it's like, hey, Aunt Babs, whatever. I think for me, and it still is, my brother, I just, love him so much, and it was incredibly sad for me, when seeing him weep just broke my heart, and I know that there's a loss, and I just...
And it's forever.
Yeah.
That's the thing that is on the side that you were having a hard time understanding, which I know that your daughter was like, is because it's non-retractable. It's not like you can go, okay, let's have a conversation, let's fix this, which you can. This is what the meds are. This is what this is about. It's having mental awareness conversations with people before it gets to the point where they're gone. Because it's like you're in a hole and you can't get out. And for those that don't get in holes, their brains work a different way. They don't even understand what that feels like. I mean, when you're jumping out of bed at the crack of dawn in the morning, let's go take pictures of babies today. Let's go pick cucumbers today. What are we going to do today?
Yeah, don't worry about
that's how you're getting out of bed, which unfortunately my crazy ass is. It's real hard to even see that side. So now that I've had time, it's been 5 years in August, I've had time to process what could have been some reasonable explanation behind that day and that action that was so non-retractable.
I think that there really isn't an explanation, because I couldn't explain it. Like, my daughter, why? Like, I just wasn't thinking about, I just wanted pain to stop.
Right.
And
Right.
like you get this numb feeling where it's like, this is the way you think that
You get there.
Yes. And so, I wasn't on medication then. I think I might have been on a little anxiety, not very much, but, I'm grateful that the consequences were retractable and that, I did get help.
Yeah.
And, but it's also very difficult because, again, when you tell somebody asks you how you're feeling and you don't always know, or you're like, really, it's like, I really want to go, get in the garage in the car and,
I'm done.
or some days are great,
Yeah,
and that's pendulum, even on meds, some days it's, but it's always sort of hard to talk about, it's just hard. And, you have a close cohort of friends, partner who,
Are you okay?
yeah, are you okay? Or you just say, no, I'm not okay today. And it's
okay.
not a big deal. It's okay.
It's okay to be not okay.
And I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And I wish people, they can say that, but I wish people would really like embrace that. Like, somebody's not okay, and it's like, you can't make them okay, but maybe you can call them, text them, whatever, just, be there just to say, because again, it is sort of hard, like we were talking about job applications, I could easily check that box, disability of depression, anxiety, but I don't, because again, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it.
And that too is part of society, and that's one of the things, it's the first steps towards, which, is refreshing. We're talking about Oprah earlier and this new book that she's come out with this doctor, and I apologize in advance for not having it in front of me and not knowing his name. But what's wrong with you is not the way to approach mental health.
Right.
And you're sick, right?
Right.
Is not the way to approach mental health. And that's the way it's been forever. And the reason why people feel shamed and people won't talk about it is because people think, oh God, I'm going to be labeled, and they're going to listen to me differently, and they're going to think something's wrong with me, and they're going to hire me, blah, 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 blah. The new book that she's done with this other doctor, which I picked up immediately and just love, I'm about halfway through, is what happened. What happened? And for me, I can really resonate with that. What happened? What happened to me? My mother was hit and killed by a train when I was 8 years old. What happened to me? My grandparents couldn't grieve the death of their child. They dressed me in her clothes. They called me by her name. What happened to me? When you go through and ask somebody what happened to them, and you really care about what happened to them, you can help them get to a better place.
Right. And sometimes you just don't know what happened.
Right.
I don't know what took me from happy, successful, I can have, I think that the relationship I was in was not helpful, and sort of really led me down a dark path, and I just, because I thought that's what I wanted or thought that was best for me.
Right.
So, sometimes you just don't.
No.
And even like in retrospect, you're like, why the hell did you do that? You just have to, that's where you were at that time. And, you cared about this person. And so you can't go back and just say, would I ever let that happen in the future? No.
No.
And of course, that's the lesson. But, when you're trying to dissect this, because you're right, there's stuff that leads up to it. I think that is like you can beat yourself up on that, and so, but I, like we talked about, suicide hotline.
Oh yeah, in the episode notes, I'm going to put in there that for sure, and it's just important, not just in the month of May. It's important all the time. I said that about breast cancer for years. I did the breast cancer calendars, and everybody got all whoop-a-loop-loop in October, and then everything kind of died down. And it's like, no, breast cancer diagnosis happens every day in this country. It happens every day around the world. It doesn't need to stop the conversation.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that May we have more of an awareness to it, but honestly, I mean, it is something that everybody needs to be more in tune to. And we are, as a society, more in tune to it now. Maybe it's because of the pandemic. Maybe it's not. don't know. We won't know. Although I will say, I feel like it's been raised because so many more people in our world suffered so many different losses and triggered so many different depressions in different people different ways, and losses of jobs and losses of income and losses of children and losses of spouses and losses of grandparents that they couldn't go grieve. Lots of stuff happened to us collectively that under all normal circumstances people would be depressed.
Right.
So I think it really surged it.
Right.
But I don't love the fact that we have a problem, but I don't even see it as a problem, which is the change. There's the pivot. I don't see people who have mental illness as an illness. It's there's something tweaked that needs to be fixed. It's not a penicillin patch. It's not a dollop of sugar helps the medicine go down. No, ma'am. It's not that. It is something that's real and needs to be taken care of and respected. I mean, we're all in this together.
Yeah, we are, and again, that's why I think it's super important. Because again, I can't beat that. Drum enough. Check on people, and if you know somebody who's depressed, again, the question might not be, what's wrong with you? Why are you depressed?
Right.
It's just talk to me. How can I help you? Maybe let's go have. I mean, simple. Like, let's just go have coffee and we'll talk about Oprah, or we'll talk about hair study, whatever. Just
Well, for you, the latest shades of lipstick, and let me tell you what, this woman has it all together. We got people calling her, wanting them to pay her to do videos, putting on people's makeup. She's been doing makeup for so long.
A long time.
It's your thing. And I love that too. Making people beautiful.
Thank you. It's my joy. But I think, actually just like somebody dragging me out of the house, and again, self-isolating and not having all these friends to talk to and like not wanting to, and there were people come over like, no, we're going out, like, oh, and they're like, no, we're going out.
Yeah.
We're going to stay, we're going to pick out your clothes. And, at that moment, it was helpful. And then you go back into, but again, that conversation of no judgment, I think is one of the biggest things that's been the most helpful to me.
Well, I love you.
I love you.
And you're perfect in my eyes.
Thank you.
So you're very welcome. Anyway. Well, I hope that you guys have found some value in our little conversation, and you better go back and look at the other episode of our other conversation about beauty and aging, because that was a great one as well. And if you did find some value, do us a favor, like and share. Don't forget to ring the bell, and we'll see you soon on another Martini Talk. Take care.